When I wrote the following pages, or rather the bulk of them, I lived alone in the woods, a mile from any neighbor, in a house which I had built myself on the shore of Walden Pond in Concord, Massachusetts, and earned my living by the labor of my hands only. I lived there 2 years and 2 months. At present, I am a sojourner in civilized life again. Near the end of March 1845, I borrowed an axe and went down to the woods by Walden Pond, nearest to where I intended to cut down some tall, arrowy white pines, still in their youth, for timber. It is difficult to begin without borrowing, but perhaps it is the most generous course, thus to permit your fellow men to have an interest in your enterprise. I began to occupy my house on the 4th of July. Transcendentalists see power and authority in nature. It has truth. It is truth. It deserves the care and attention of religion. They wish to be in nature and simply be, and yet not be. Ralph Waldo Emerson's transparent eyeball, I am nothing, I see all. They are open to new power, new light, new truth. Henry David Thoreau went into the woods and built a cabin. He didn't like to be labeled a transcendentalist, but he had the same reverence for and fascination with nature. He lived among nature for 2 years. He watched everything with Emerson's transparent eyeball, always taking in the truth that surrounded him. The solitude in surrounding nature allowed him to search his own life, reflecting on the natural beauty and truth. The constant chatter and noise of society drove Thoreau into the woods. He said, "I would rather ride on a pumpkin and have it all to myself than be crowded on a velvet cushion." He became fed up with the ugliness and the shallows of this world. Value had lessened in society. Men and women put value on clothing and appearances, money and reputation. Thoreau gained nothing from it. Most men appear never to have considered what a house is, and are actually, though needlessly poor, all their lives because they think that they must have such a one as their neighbors have. Thoreau looked around and saw how much housework has to be done in a house, all the things that have to be cleaned and maintained. I had 3 pieces of limestone on my desk, but I was terrified to find that they required to be dusted daily, when the furniture of my mind was all undusted still, and I threw them out the window in disgust. How then could I have a furnished house? I would rather sit in the open air, for no dust gathers on the grass, unless where man has broken ground. The wildness of nature drew him in. He understood, perhaps more so than any other transcendentalist, that nature is not an entirely kind being. After living in it for 2 years, there's no way he could be so naive. True, he lived relatively close to civilization, close enough to buy supplies. He had to deal with more nuisances of nature rather than dangers. Perhaps this makes his respect of it all the more amazing. It is easy to respect something you fear, but not so easy to respect something irritating. But I cannot become a recluse in a patch of trees. I cannot build my own cabin. Where would I go? There are no free places left. There is no scrap of ground to declare my own, and scarcely enough trees to spare for one humble cabin. Leaving society has consequences, and even Thoreau got accused of tax avoidance. These days the complications would be much worse. What old people say you cannot do, you try and find that you can. That is what Thoreau says. No doubt they told him he couldn't go into the woods and start his own way of life, but he did so, and he did so brilliantly. Surely I can make my own escape. The world may have changed since Thoreau's time, but many things are the same. Evils of mankind, racism and abuse, the tiniest cruel word, constant noise. There must be a way to find truth in today's age. Yes, the world has changed, but the truth of nature must remain. Somewhere, I must find it. The Transcendentalist movement happened in the 1800s, but they must still exist. Truth must still be out there, even if nature has declined. Humans multiply by the day, and we have nowhere else to go but into nature. We tame it and reshape it to fit us in our society. But I want the honest nature, the truth. I want to experience that honesty and rawness that comes from such a secure solitude, the only neighbors being the trees and the birds. I want this natural silence and noise to let me think and find the peace Thoreau found. I go to the place every student goes first, Google. I search and search for modern methods of transcendentalism, but everything I find is vague. They focus on meditation or society, ads telling you to be yourself by buying their popular merchandise. This is not what I want. I want a simpler truth. I want to be a transparent eyeball and exist in nature and truth. There are websites where Thoreau has been digitized, promoting the deliberate reading of Thoreau's works in new ways. I do not want to read it in new ways. I want to follow in his footsteps. Students at the University of Southern California are creating a game based on Thoreau. In the virtual world, you can go out and build your cabin in the woods around Walden Pond. You can walk in Thoreau's footsteps, experience the things he did, all from the safety of your computer. Unfortunately, the game is not complete, but this idea is hardly a new concept. There are countless other games where I can enter the wilderness and survive, do things my way, be independent as I create my own world of solitude. The possibilities are endless. I can create an alien ecosystem, craft an entire mountain, build an elaborate house, craft different tools. But even if I were good at these games, it is not what I want. This is no truth. I am not actually experiencing nature. I am just looking at replications on a screen. Thoreau said that students shouldn't play at life, but should actually experience it. But how can I? How can I experience true life, a life of meaning, when all that is offered are games? There is no more free land I can claim for myself. Unlike Thoreau, I do not have a close friend who happens to own a chunk of woods by a lake. I am only allowed brief visits to the wilderness that is owned by others. I pay my little scraps of money to let me be alone among nature, among something that used to cover the entire planet, among something that there used to be, perhaps, too much of. The inspiration for Transcendentalism came from Germany. After America dealt with it, Germany kept on with the idea. Montverita Ascona, the Mount of Truth. All sorts of loners gathered there to cultivate the land and learn from each other, to find the truth in nature and themselves. Rudolf von Laban, founder of European modern dance. He traveled all over following his artistic pursuits, finding himself in Ascona time and again to dance on the mountain with his company and colleagues. It was there he opened a dance farm. They rejoiced in nature and expressed their truth through dance. Today, Montverita is a tourist attraction. Laban has long since died, his dance form discontinued. Even if I could get to Montverita, would it give me what it gave Laban all those years ago? Or will I continue to pay entrance fees to parks and wildlife reserves, careful not to tread too harshly for fear of damaging the nature we must preserve? Thoreau probably would have laughed at that. Nature is such a powerful force, it shouldn't need us to preserve it. It should run rampant, run wild. I want to be nothing and everything. I want to be a transparent eyeball. I want truth and nature. I want to live it, and I have. Through this pursuit of truth, I have found just a little. Perhaps over time I can find more and build up my own Montverita, my own Walden Pond. I have pursued truth, but this means nothing to you. You cannot experience nature and truth through the screen connecting us. That is what I have learned. I had to get my hands dirty.